The Heart Sūtra is a famous sutra in Mahāyāna Buddhism. Its Sanskrit title, Prajñāpāramitāhṛdaya, literally means the heart of the perfection of understanding. The Heart Sūtra is often cited as the best known and most popular Buddhist scripture of all. The text is very short, and it is generally believed to be Buddhist apocrypha written in China using excerpts of a translation of the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra. See Nattier. Hypothesis below. Introduction. The Heart Sutra, belonging to the perfection of wisdom category of Mahāyāna Buddhism literature along with the Diamond Sutra, is perhaps the most prominent representative of the genre. The long version of the Sanskrit Heart Sutra is a prose text of some 280 words. In the Chinese version of the short text attributed to Xuanzang, it has 260 Chinese characters. In English it is composed of 16 sentences. This makes it one of the shortest texts in the perfection of wisdom genre, which contains scriptures in lengths up to 100,000 lines. The essence of Wisdom Sutra is much shorter than the other perfection of wisdom sutras, but it contains explicitly or implicitly the entire meaning of the longer sutras. This sutra is classified by Edward Conze as belonging to the third of four periods in the development of the Prajñāpāramita canon. Although because it contains a mantra, it does overlap with the final, tantric phase of development according to this scheme, and is included in the Tantra section of at least some editions of the Kangya. Conze estimates the sutra's date of origin to be 350 CE. Some others consider it to be 2 centuries older than that. Recent scholarship is unable to verify its existence before any date earlier than the 7th century CE. The Chinese version is frequently chanted by the Chan, Zen, Xian, and Thin schools during ceremonies in China, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam respectively. It is also significant to Shingon Buddhism, whose founder Kukai wrote a commentary on it, and to the various Tibetan Buddhist schools, where it is studied extensively. The sutra is in a small class of sutras not attributed to the Buddha. In some versions of the text, starting with that of Phalu dating to about 735, the Buddha confirms and praises the words of Avalokitesvara. Although this is not included in the preeminent Chinese version translated by Xuanzang, the Tibetan canon uses the longer version, although Tibetan translations without the framing text have been found at Dunhuang. The Chinese Buddhist canon includes both long and short versions, and both versions exist in Sanskrit. Origin and early translations. The earliest extant text of the Heart Sutra is the palm leaf manuscript found at the Horyuji temple and dated to 609 CE. It was one of 2 texts which formed the basis for a published edition by Max Muller and formed the basis of a published edition by Shakuhanya. However, it is important to note that a comparison of the script with India manuscripts and inscriptions argues for a date in the 8th century for the Horyuji manuscript. A Chinese text attributed to Xuanzang and dated 649 CE is preserved in the Chinese Tripitaka. Stories exist of earlier translations but are likely to be apocryphal. In particular, Edward Conze acknowledges that the text attributed to Kumarajiva is the work of his student. It is not mentioned. A biography compiled in 519 CE. John McCrae and Jan Nattier have argued that this translation was created by someone else, much later, based on Kumarajiva's large sutra. Zhiqian's version, supposedly composed in 200–250 CE, was lost before the time of Xuanzang, who produced his own version in 649 CE. which closely matches the one attributed to Kumarajiva. Xuanzang's version is the first record of the title Heart Sūtra being used for the text, and Fukui Fumimasa has argued that actually means Dharani scripture. According to Huili's biography, Xuanzang learned the sutra from an inhabitant of Sichuan, and subsequently chanted it during times of danger in his journey to the West. Critical editions. There have been several critical editions of the Sanskrit text of the Heart Sutra, including Muller and Vaidya. Today the definitive edition is Konzi's, originally published in 1948, reprinted in 1967 and revised in 1973. Konz had access to 12 Nepalese manuscripts, 7 manuscripts and inscriptions from China, 2 manuscripts from Japan, as well as several translations from the Chinese canon and 1 from the Tibetan. There is a great deal of variation across the manuscripts in the title, the Mangala verses, and within the text itself. Many of the manuscripts are corrupt or simply carelessly copied. In 2014, Atwood described a previously unknown manuscript of the long version of the Heart Sutra. Then in 2015 published an article highlighting a mistake in Konzi's critical edition. Jonathan Silk produced a critical edition of the Tibetan Kanjur version. The Kanjur only contains the long text in 2 recensions, however a number of short texts in Tibetan were found at Dunhuang. One has been published, but there has been no study of these texts to date. Nattier hypothesis. However, based on textual patterns in the Sanskrit and Chinese versions of the Heart Sutra and the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra, scholar Jan Nattier has suggested that the earliest version of the Heart Sutra was probably first composed in China in the Chinese language from a mixture of material derived from Kumarajiva's Chinese translation of the Large Perfection of Wisdom Sutra and new composition, and that this assemblage was later translated into Sanskrit. She argues that the majority of the text was redacted from Kumarajiva's larger sutra on the perfection of wisdom, which had originated with a Sanskrit Indian original, but that the framing passages were new compositions in Chinese by a Chinese author and that the text was intended as a dharani rather than a sutra. The Chinese version of the core of the Heart Sutra matches a passage from the Large Sutra almost exactly, character by character, but the corresponding Sanskrit texts, while agreeing in meaning, differ in virtually every word. Furthermore, Nattier argues that there is no evidence of a Sanskrit version before the 8th century, and she dates the first evidence of Chinese versions to the 7th century. She considers attributions to earlier dates extremely problematic. In any case, the corroborating evidence supports a Chinese version at least a century before a Sanskrit version. This theory has become the scholarly consensus, but is rejected by Red Pine, who favors the idea of a lost manuscript of the Large Perfection of Wisdom Sutra with the alternate Sanskrit wording despite there being no evidence for such a lost text. Harada disproved Nattier's theory. He also said that Nattier has factual error in reading, so that he can't put trust in her reading skill of Chinese materials. Title: The Zhiqian version is titled Pojo Polomi Shenchuai Shwana Prajñāpāramitāhṛdaya Mantra in 1 volume. The Kumarajiva version is titled Moho Pojo Polomi Shenchuai Shwana Mahaprajnaparamita Mantra in 1 volume. Xuanzang's translation was the first to use Shin in the title. Despite the common name Heart Sutra, the word sutra is not present in known Sanskrit manuscripts, which refer to it simply as Prajñāpāramitāhṛdaya. Xuanzang's translation was also the first to call the text a sutra. No extant Sanskrit copies use this word, though it has become standard usage in Chinese and Tibetan, as well as English. Some citations of Zhiqian's and Kumarajiva's versions prepend Moho to the title. Some Tibetan editions add Bhagavati, meaning victorious one or conqueror, an epithet of Prajñāpāramita as goddess. In the Tibetan text the title is given first in Sanskrit and then in Tibetan. Sanskrit, Tibetan, Wylie, become LDAN, Dasmar Shes Rubkyipha roll to Phi and Pi Sneeing Po. In other languages, the title is frequently called Heart Sūtra in common usage. English, Heart of the Perfection of Wisdom. Chinese, Xinjing. Korean, Banya Shimgyeong. Japanese, Han and Ya Shinjio. Vietnamese, Bat Nha Tam Gin. Text. Various commentators divide this text into different numbers of sections. Briefly, the sutra describes the experience of liberation of the Bodhisattva of compassion, Avalokitesvara, as a result of vipassana gained while engaged in deep meditation to awaken the faculty of prajna. The insight refers to apprehension of the fundamental emptiness of all phenomena, known through and as the five aggregates of human existence: form, feeling, volitions, perceptions, and consciousness. The specific sequence of concepts listed in lines 12 to 20 is the same sequence used in the Sarvastivadin Samyukta Agama. This sequence differs in comparable texts of other sects. On this basis, Red Pine has argued that the Heart Sutra is specifically a response to Sarvastivada teachings that, in the sense phenomena or its constituents, are real. Lines 12-13 enumerate the 5 skandhas. Lines 14-15 list the 12 ayatanas or abodes. Line 16 makes a reference to the 18 dhatus or elements of consciousness, using a conventional shorthand of naming only the first and last of the elements. Lines 17-18 assert the emptiness of the 12 nidanas, the traditional 12 links of dependent origination. Line 19 refers to the Four Noble Truths. Avalokitesvara addresses Ariputra, who was the promulgator of Abhidharma according to the scriptures and texts of the Sarvastivada and other early Buddhist schools, having been singled out by the Buddha to receive those teachings. Avalokitesvara famously states, "Form is empty, emptiness is form," and declares the other skandhas to be equally empty, that is, dependently originated. Avalokitesvara then goes through some of the most fundamental Buddhist teachings such as the Four Noble Truths and explains that in emptiness none of these notions apply. This is interpreted according to the Two Truths doctrine as saying that teachings, while accurate descriptions of conventional truth, are mere statements about reality, they are not reality itself, and that they are therefore not applicable to the ultimate truth that is by definition beyond mental understanding. Thus the Bodhisattva, as the archetypal Mahāyāna Buddhist, relies on the perfection of wisdom, defined in the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutra to be the wisdom that perceives reality directly without conceptual attachment. This perfection of wisdom is condensed in the mantra with which the sutra concludes. It is unusual for Avalokitesvara to be in the central role in a Prajñāpāramita text. Early Prajñāpāramita texts involve Subhuti, who is absent from both versions of the Heart Sutra, and the Buddha, who is only present in the longer version. This could be considered evidence that the text is Chinese in origin. Mantra. Jan Nattier points out in her article on the origins of the Heart Sutra that this mantra in several variations is present in the Chinese Tripitaka, associated with several different Prajñāpāramita texts. The version in the Heart Sutra runs, Sanskrit ISD, gate para samgate bodhi svaha, Devanagari, IPA, ete pari san ete bodhi svaha. This was transliterated by other Mahāyāna Buddhist traditions in China and Tibet, and then spread to other regions such as Korea, Vietnam, and Japan. Classical transliterations of the mantra include Burmese, Chinese, Pinyin, GAD, Boluo GAD, Boluo Seng GAD, Putisuo Poe, Japanese pronunciation, Gyate Hara Gyate Haraso Gyate Burji Sauerkirk, Korean, Romaha, AJ Bara AJ Barasung AJ Emoji Sabaha, Vietnamese, Yetda, Bala Tang Yetda, Bodhitat Baha, Tibetan, Chinese exegesis. In the traditions of Chinese Buddhism in East Asia, it is said that the Indian masters who came to China to translate Sanskrit texts never translated mantras into Chinese because they knew this could not be done. They also held that it was impossible to explain the esoteric meanings of the mantras in words. It is said that when a devotee succeeds in realizing singleness of mind by repeating a mantra, then its profound meaning will be clearly revealed to him or her. Two commentaries of the Heart Sutra were composed by pupils of Shanzang in the late 7th or early 8th century, and these have both been translated into English. They approach the text from a Yogacara point of view and thus provide a contrast with the Indian and Tibetan commentaries, which are from Madhyamaka and Tantric viewpoints. Tibetan exegesis. Each Buddhist tradition with an interest in the Heart Sutra seems to have its own interpretation of the sutra, and therefore of the mantra. As Alex Wayman commented, one feature of these commentaries on the Heart Sutra struck me quite forcibly. Each commentary seemed so different to the others, and yet they all seemed to show in greater or lesser degree the influence of the Madhyamika school of Buddhist philosophy. Donald Lopez goes further to suggest, the question still remains of the exact function of the mantra within the sutra, because the sutra provides no such explanation and the sadhanas make only perfunctory references to the mantra. Tibetan exegesis of the mantra tends to look back on it from a tantric point of view, for instance seeing it as representing progressive steps along the 5 paths of the Bodhisattva, through the 2 preparatory stages, through the first part of the first boom, through the second part of the first to the 10th boom, and to the 11th boom. The 14th Dalai Lama explains the mantra both as an instruction for practice and as a device for measuring one's own level of spiritual attainment, and translates it as go beyond, go thoroughly beyond, and establish yourself in enlightenment. In the discourse, he gives a similar explanation to the 4 stages as in the previous paragraph. Translation: Edward Conze attempted to render the mantra into English as gone beyond, gone altogether beyond. Oh, what an awakening! All hail! There are several approaches to translating the mantra, most of which assume that the mantra obeys the rules of classical Sanskrit. However, the string of words resists analysis and, like most mantras, is not a grammatical sentence. Selected English translations. Recordings. The Heart Sutra has been set to music a number of times. Many singers solo this sutra. The Buddhist Audio-Visual Production Center produced a Cantonese album of recordings of the Heart Sutra in 1995 featuring a number of Hong Kong pop singers, including Alan Tam, Anita Mui and Fei Wong, and composer by Andrew Lam Man Chung to raise money to rebuild the Kai Lin Nunnery. Other Hong Kong pop singers, such as the 4 Heavenly Kings, sang the Heart Sutra to raise money for relief efforts related to the 921 earthquake. An alternative Mandarin version was performed by Fei Wong in 2009 at the Feiman Temple, and its recording subsequently used as a theme song in the blockbusters Aftershock and Shanzang. Shaolin monk Shifu Shi Yan Ming also recites the sutra at the end of the song Life Changes by the Wu-Tang Clan, in remembrance of the deceased member ODB. The outro of the B-side song Ghetto Defendant by the British first-wave punk band The Clash also features the Heart Sutra, recited by American beat poet Allen Ginsberg. A slightly edited version is used as the lyrics for Yoshimitsu's theme in the PlayStation 2 game Tekken Tag Tournament. An Indian-styled version was also created by Bombay Jayashree, title named G Project. It was also recorded and arranged by Malaysian singer-composer Imioy. An Esperanto translation of portions of the text furnished the libretto of the cantata Licoro Sutro by American composer Lou Harrison. Popular culture. In the centuries following the historical Xuanzang, an extended tradition of literature fictionalizing the life of Xuanzang and glorifying his special relationship with the Heart Sūtra arose, of particular note being the Journey to the West. In Chapter 19 of Journey to the West, the fictitious Xuanzang learns by heart the Heart Sutra after hearing it recited one time by the Crow's Nest Zen master, who flies down from his tree perch with a scroll containing it, and offers to impart it. A full text of the Heart Sutra is quoted in this fictional account. The mantra of the Heart Sutra was used as the lyrics for the opening theme song of the 2011 Chinese television series Journey to the West. Western philosophy. Schopenhauer, in the final words of his main work, compared his doctrine to the Unyata of the Heart Sutra. In Volume 1, Section 71 of The World as Will and Representation, Schopenhauer wrote, "To those in whom the will has turned and has denied itself, this very real world of ours, with all its suns and Milky Ways, bullshit nothing." To this, he appended the following note: "This is also the Prajñāpāramitāhṛdaya of the Buddhists, the beyond all knowledge, in other words, the point where subject and object no longer exist."